Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we're doing August's bullet journal setup, and this month's theme is doilies. I'll start off right away with answering the question that I feel like you'd be wondering as soon as I say that I made handmade doilies, which is, how did I do this? Kind of unfortunately, I did use a Cricut to make these cuts, and I say unfortunately because a Cricut is on the pricier side. But if you don't have one, I recommend trying to check out your home library to see if they will offer any makerspace services for you. I feel like nowadays a lot of libraries have Cricuts in their space and all you need to bring is some paper or whatever you want to cut. Like my library offers a ton of cool tools that you can use and you don't even need to be a resident. So definitely look into that. The Cricut that I have is the Cricut Explore Air 2, but I'd like to believe that you can use any version to make these cuts. I use my 30-day free trial of the Cricut Design Space subscription to find hundreds and hundreds of doily templates. Then I picked the ones I liked, put them on my Cricut Design Space canvas, and measured them out so they fit in my journal for the ideas that I had. You're probably noticing right away that I didn't go with the typical solid colors that we see with doilies a lot. I really wanted to use this cute craft paper that I got from Martina's Tiny Store because I have so much of it and the patterns are so cute. I don't know the exact weight of this paper, but it's definitely very thin because it has this purpose of being used in so many different crafty ways that requires more flexibility. So that definitely led to an issue of not knowing how to cut such intricate designs on this paper without it tearing. I tried so many different cutting settings. Some were way too aggressive and others barely made a mark on it. So I was honestly very frustrated, but super determined. So after a lot of trial and error, I finally found the cutting setting that worked, which was copy paper and having it set to less pressure. I was so happy that I even took some footage of me being so excited that I figured it out to share with you guys.
Please do not look at my messy Cricut mat, but I'm very excited because I think this is going to be my first successful cut using the Cricut to make my doily after so many failed attempts. So here we go. I just need to document this. Oh my gosh. No way. Oh, okay, it wasn't perfect, but wow. Stunning. I can't wait to pop these holes off. It cut perfectly. Yay! Oh my gosh, I just realized my nail is off. Sorry about that.
So yeah, this was actually one of the better cuts that I had. The rest of the doilies I did maybe cut about 70% of the holes. Here's an example of one fresh out of the Cricut versus how it looks all done after I've punched all the holes out. I was okay with punching out the holes myself because it just needed a little extra help from me and I just was gently pushing on the holes while I was like watching TV, so it was fine. And at this point, I would have much rather done that than risk wasting more of my cute paper to see if I could push it a little more. Okay, I think that's finally all I want to say about the cutting process of this, but I had to say all of that to document the journey these doilies took me on. But now let's catch up with the title and calendar pages. I measured out a doily template to perfectly fit in the center of my A5 page and chose to use this cute tulip pattern. I knew I wanted to write August in the center of the doily, but it wouldn't show up well if I wrote it on the tulip paper, and I didn't want to write it on white paper because then I thought that'd just blend in with the white background too much. So I made a circle with this more yellowish dotted paper that I have instead, which I think added a little more contrast. I went with this sort of elegant cursive handwriting because I want this theme to be very soft. I'm using a fine liner on the thinner side in 02 and using that same fine liner for additional writings or designs you'll see throughout the theme. I'm making a calendar page on the left side and I already cut out this square shaped doily that would fit my calendar on the same yellowish paper perfectly. This is a red gingham design which I thought paired nicely with the red tulips on the title page. I'm gluing the doily more towards the top of the page so that I can leave room to write events for the more major things happening this month. And for the lines, I chose to do dashes instead of a solid line because It's kind of giving doily to me with this stitching vibe. And I like that it overall is just a lot more subtle as I'm going for this soft and low-key coquette vibe. And while I'm finishing this up, I like to do research on my themes sometimes, and I really want to learn more about how doilies even came to be, and now I want to share it with you. The open work doilies really started taking off in the mid 1800s. Open work is a form of cutting that essentially is referring to all the open holes that you often see with doilies. Nuns taught women in poverty how to crochet doilies as a source of income for their families. It seems like it was mostly being made as a decorative piece of people's homes and even became an essential to creating a fancy dining table. They just kept growing in popularity with different techniques, designs, and uses until about 1950 when pieces just became much more streamlined and there wasn't this need for it anymore. So they thought. Specifically, women really started appreciating doilies again in the 1970s, so we're literally just talking 20 years later. Marge Engelman, who is a textile artist and doily collector, wrote this poem that to me is both beautiful and heartbreaking. It says, "The rough arthritic hands, the tired squinting eyes, focusing in the low glow of the kerosene lamp, the time, the patience, the creativity, and not one doily has a link to the name of the maker. Why did we not praise these women whose agile hands created all this beauty?" She continues with another quote in her unpublished essay called Fiber Arts and Healing and says, "These women with their work-laden lives who found time to create, to design these intricate works of art, how their minds and souls must have thrived as they clicked the needles, guided the threads, worked the hook, twisted the shuttles." So how cool is it that this is just one woman in the 70s to recognize this talent and basically be like, what the hell? Why do we not know who made these beautiful, intricate pieces? And then they just like wanted to carry on their legacy. Deborah Urbach of the Crochet Insider website said, "Old crochet is evidence of several traditional and continuing truths about the lives of women. When I cherish a piece of antique lace, crocheted for profit or for pure beauty in another century, by a woman I've never met, I participate in a kinship, a sisterhood larger than my own life. It is also a symbol of the strength, creativity, and determination to rise above the mundane of women who have gone before me." To feel that bond with art is so amazing to me, especially when it has to do with womanhood. Anyway, I know that was pretty long-winded, but it definitely helped inspire me, so I wanted to share it with you. So this theme goes out to all the unrecognized women who started making doilies with little pay and no credit for making so many beautiful pieces that inspire people like me so many years later. Alright, so now let's catch up on the spreads. I wrote Habit Tracker in the cursive font and made 4 mini calendars to track 4 habits. I knew I couldn't do like a doily for each habit calendar, so I instead used the Cricut to make a scalloped border for my mini calendars with this pink and red polka dot paper. I sort of wish I just made a smaller version of the template used for my calendar page because I think that's giving more doily than just the scalloped edges, but it's okay. You may be caught that I tried to make it slightly more holy with a hole punch, but I did not like how that turned out, so I just left it. Because the borders had to be on the larger side to be noticed, I really had to cut down how many habits to track, which I do think is worth it to have this design. I've sort of been slacking on my habits lately, which maybe one could argue is a sign that it's not worth it to cut it down, but I want to go easier on myself. I'm feeling a bit behind on life lately, and I want to focus on catching up with that this month. I think I'll get there soon, especially because once I got the cutting part down with the doilies, this really is a pretty simple theme, which is much needed. I'm doing the same thing I did on the title page, which is add more of these dashes as a little blank space doodle, and I added this very subtle white gingham washi tape so that it can match with any page I need to fill some extra blank space, since I'll be using a bunch of different colored patterns throughout this theme. By the way, I haven't mentioned this yet, but there's 2 patterns on each doily doily depending on which side you're on. So I really like that flexibility with this craft paper so that I can match whichever pattern best fits the color scheme I've got going on the page. And for the mood tracker, I'm writing the title with the cursive font, and I just wanted to make one large doily. So I went on Cricut Design Space and literally tried to find a doily with roughly 31 holes for the 31 days of the month. And I found one with 32, so close enough. I thought this apple pattern would be really cute because August is also back to school season. For some reason, I was nervous that if I put the mood tracker title in the center like I did for the August page, you wouldn't be able to see the apples too much, but whatever. Now you can just see them very clearly, which I think is also cute. One issue I ran into while doing this theme was that obviously since the doilies have holes, it was a bit hard for me to glue down. You probably noticed by now I'm mostly using adhesive tape to glue it down. And then if it still wasn't sticking, I took this Tombow multi-liquid glue on the broad tip side to glue it down even more. And this was bad logic. I don't know what I was thinking was going to happen, but like it obviously was going to be sticky through the holes, at least with the tape. And then with the liquid glue, I had to wait for it to dry before turning the page, which I didn't really take into consideration. You can see me even breaking out tweezers and getting a paper towel to take off some of the tape and clean off sticky residue. I'll tell you another problem I have in a second when we get to the next page. But while I was waiting for all of my glue to dry, I numbered the holes 1 through 31 and drew the patterns I'm going to use at the bottom to track my moods. I thought it'd be cute to use a red pen for this to match the apple pattern. And yeah, then I got a jump scare flipping to my gratitude spread because you can see the glue markings straight through the page from my mood tracker. So needless to say, I think I went in a little too hard with the liquid glue and was really bummed to see that. I didn't have much of a plan for the gratitude spread though, which I guess was kind of a good thing because I could kind of wing it. But I also wanted to see if maybe the glue just needed to dry a little more or something. So I just wrote the title and numbered 1 through 31 and left it at that for now to give it a little more time. For my page on the right, I had this idea of going kind of doily crazy, just pretty much pasting doilies everywhere. I like to sort of think of this page as abstract art in a way, where we can appreciate each cut of each doily and see how it can create something beautiful when it's all put together too. I made sure to be much more careful with the glue this time and even let some pieces stick up a little more because it's not the end of the world and not worth forcing it to be all glued down, potentially ruining the next page. As I discovered, I trimmed off where it overlaps on the spine and anything hanging off of the page, and I don't know, I think it's a cool page. I think it works out nicely too with not having any doilies on the gratitude page. My doily would have had to be pretty tiny to realistically go on that page, so I like that this page with the doilies everywhere is right next to it to kind of help make up for that. I fear waiting for the glue to dry did not make my gratitude spread look much better, but I did think that highlighting every other line would at least help mask it a little more, so I went ahead and did that with this light purple. And lastly, I just added those dashed lines next to the blank spaces of the gratitude title. Here's the final flip through of August's doily theme in my bullet journal. I love how each page is so different in the same way that every doily is so different, and I'm so happy I got to complete my vision after a lot of trial and error with cutting the doilies myself. I really hope you all enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!